Today, we are covering how to pick the right mastermind for 2021. So it's kind of crazy that it's already that time of year again when we start to think about next year. And sometimes a little too quickly, right? We forget there's still quarter three and quarter four, and we're all of a sudden ready to go and jump into 2021, right? So it usually starts right around, I think, that July mark. So if you're listening to this and thinking masterminds, it's only September. Honestly, I would say most people are thinking about masterminds, people that have been in masterminds again and again, they're already starting to think about this in July or so. So do not wait too long to figure out what mastermind will be a good fit for you, because it may be full by the time you actually go to apply. I will definitely see a wave of people that apply in December and January, and ours are already full steam ahead. So you want to make sure you're already thinking about this. Now, I'm going to be talking about what a mastermind is, why masterminds are so important for continued growth, and then things to consider for picking the right mastermind. Now, I've been in a mastermind for about 14 years, and they've all looked very, very different. I've been in some free ones that are peer-led. I've been in paid ones where there's a facilitator. We'll talk about the pros and cons of those. I've been in small group masterminds, just a few people, big groups, local in person where we meet up actually physically in a location. And then I've been on them where they've been nationwide and meeting virtual. So you name it. I've probably been in one just like the one maybe you've been in. So I have a lot of options of what works, what doesn't. We're going to talk about that today. Now, understand that not everybody is quite ready for a mastermind, right? In fact, I did a free training about the 4 stages of small business owners. And I would recommend checking it out, because if you're in the very, very early stages of it, I wouldn't recommend a mastermind quite yet. You can go watch that training at stacytuschel.com/insider. All the details are there. So let's jump into what is a mastermind. So if you're watching, I want to ask you, how many of you have heard of a mastermind before? Is that a new phrase for you, or is that something that's been kind of popping up for you a little bit? So a mastermind is just a group of a peer-to-peer mentoring group, basically used to help like brainstorm and solve problems, right? And you get advice from other people in the group. So basically, we have a common theme, a common objective of what we are trying to accomplish. Okay. Now, why a mastermind? Well, first of all, if you've heard the quote by Jim Rohn, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, you have to start to understand that the quality of the people you surround yourself with will absolutely have an impact on who you are becoming, like where you are heading, right? So you want to make sure that every single year you are up leveling the people that you are surrounding yourself with. A mastermind group will challenge you to grow, right? And really kind of stretch you in a positive way. So that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons why is to stretch, to see that room for growth. I think a lot of us, we're constantly going, what's next? What's next? Right? And to be in your own world and hear what you think is next versus other people that are driven and motivated, right? It starts to get a whole different level. Another reason for a mastermind is connection. So I think entrepreneurship, we can all agree that it can be a very lonely experience, right? If you maybe have a spouse that has a typical 9-to-5 job and they just don't get it, maybe you don't have any friends that have businesses, it can start to feel really, really lonely. So sharing your big dreams, your big goals with somebody who is not in this world can also feel like, I don't even want to share because they're going to think I'm crazy. Or like, if I would have shared my goals when I was 18 years old with my 18-year-old friends, they would have looked at me like I was nuts. And then it probably would have like kind of quieted me or made me think that's not realistic, right? So you want to make sure that you're finding yourself with a group of people that can help push you, right? So that connection is huge. And I want to tell you too, you might be really disappointed about something that you recently tried. And then let's say it didn't work out. And then you hear somebody say, oh, you know what? I did that when I first started. Totally normal. It's okay. And by the time I did it the second time, it was so much better and I got the hang of it, right? Do you see how connecting with somebody that's gone through what you've gone through, right? They're in the same situation, starts to normalize things that have not been a part of your everyday life, okay? So you start to get reassured versus defeated, and it keeps you going in times of disappointment. This will happen when you have like a brand new idea for a product or a new sale or promotion, and then nobody buys, and you're going, oh great, should I just quit? Should I stop? And then somebody in the group will say, nope, totally common, or things like, no, actually in August, our numbers were down for the podcast, or our numbers were down for this. I've heard across the board it's been down, right? When you hear things like that, you go, okay, like, whew, I feel better, right? That's the stage that you want to be in, where you can share, you can be open, you can be vulnerable, right? And then they can give you that feedback of, no, it should be a little bit higher. So let's get you up there. What can we do, right? Really just a private space to share what is actually going on, and to get you to be able to be open and have that vulnerable stage. All right. Next reason why, accountability. All right. So in the day-to-day business activity, it is super easy to get sidetracked, right? And all of a sudden you're working on little to-dos and not the big things that are actually going to move the needle forward. But when you tell somebody in a mastermind what you're working on and what you're trying to accomplish by the end of the month, what happens is you jump on the phone and they're like, hey, for instance, I just jumped off my mastermind call yesterday, and my mastermind was like, how's the content machine going? It was a new funnel I just launched. I told them about it. Well, they asked me about it, right? So when they ask me, that accountability prompts me to go, okay, I better have a good answer when they ask me, because I don't want to look like I'm the only person in the group not working, not motivated, right? So it ups the level of your drive and your motivation. Accountability is absolutely a crucial aspect to have in your business, right? You can get accountability with private coaching and places like that. But I think knowing that there's this group of high level achievers, right? You're going to want to have an even higher level of accountability and really determination to make it happen. Okay. Because think, when you have just a coach, that coach, you kind of put them on a pedestal. You're like, well, I'm here and my coach is up here. Hopefully, I hope you don't hire a coach that's not as further along than you are. So you put them on a pedestal. So when you say, I did it, but I didn't get the results I was hoping for, in your mind, you're thinking, but they're up here and I'm only here. So that makes sense. But when you're in a peer-to-peer mastermind, right? When you're at the same level of people and everybody's at the same level, you show up in a different way, because if you know they're all trying it, they're all doing it and seeing results or getting results, doing the work, you know that if you're here, you better be showing up with the same type of tenacity, the same level of commitment. Make sense? Okay, so accountability is huge. The next one, this is a big one that I love. I love strategy. I love relevant, real-time, what is working now? Like, give me the latest, greatest Instagram strategy. Tell me what's happening for podcasts for 2020. Like, I want to hear that stuff, right? And I remember a couple years ago, I had a friend reach out. I was in a mastermind with her the year prior, and then I joined again, and she didn't. And she's like, hey, why'd you go back? Like, I was good, but like, I felt like I got everything I needed. And I'm like, yeah, but the strategy always changes, right? And she's like, but we have so much strategy from last year. Yes, but the world, the social media world, the online marketing world, right? The digital marketing that we are all doing, whether we have an in-person or online business, right? It doesn't matter. It's changing so quickly. So if I were right now in my brick and mortars, in my Performing Arts Academy, to be using Facebook strategies that I had been using from 3 years ago from a mastermind, I could tell you they would be so wrong. I would be probably confused why my costs are going up, right? I would be wondering why the strategies aren't as effective anymore. So you need to be staying up to date with those strategies. And that is a big one people don't realize. You might have so many online courses that you purchased 3 years ago, but if you're not doing anything right now relevant in real time, especially now with COVID, right? Then you probably have out of date strategies. Okay. So strategy is a big, big one. Now, one of the things that I want you to understand too, I love one-to-one coaching and I love masterminds. I love them both. I want to explain a big difference here. Okay. When I want strategy, what I want you to understand is like the pro and the con. Okay. So the brainstorm of several masterminds versus just one-to-one coaching. Let's talk about that for a second. When you hire a one-on-one coach, right? It's just you and them, and you are there to get marketing. You are like, just give me everything. I need visibility strategies. I want to grow like crazy this year. And that's all you bring up, right? That is going to be all they're going to teach you because you're asking for it. Okay. But now picture this. You're in a mastermind. You're there for marketing, but it's somebody else's turn to talk. And they're talking about revenue and profit and this big game-changing strategy they just did to really get their profit dialed in. Okay. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm interested. Like, tell me more. You start asking questions. You start getting more details, more strategy, right? Do you see how when you're working one-on-one with somebody, you're only going to be getting what you ask or what they want to teach, right? But in a mastermind, there's so many other brains and thoughts and strategies going around the room that you can really start to go, ooh, that interests me. Okay. So I think that's something to think about. Again, I'm not knocking one-on-one coaching. I love having a one-on-one coach. It is something that I think is also very powerful, but there is a big difference in what you're hearing, which is why I like to pair one-on-one coaching with masterminds. Okay. So it doesn't have to be an either or. Remember that. Now, another thing is receiving feedback. So for instance, sometimes when you have a coach or a friend or a peer and they give you your opinion, right? They're like, don't do that. Bad idea, right? Like that doesn't work. You hear the one version, the one side. But in a mastermind, and first, it's rare that everybody's going to agree, okay? What's going to happen is you're going to hear maybe, let's say there's a group of 10 of you. There might be 7 people who feel one way and 3 people who feel the other, right? And you might go, okay. So we're arguing here, but the majority is heading in this direction. That gives me a better sense of I'm going to head that way, right? If you're 50-50, okay, then you probably can go either way, right? And if you give an idea, which I've done before, and everybody hates it, it's the worst to be in a hot seat like that where you're like, I've got this great idea, here it is. And everybody's like, don't do it, okay? Then you go, all right, thank you. I just saved myself time. Hearing a no from one coach or one person or one peer or one friend or spouse or anybody, right? You're like, well, that's just their opinion. But when you hear it's a unanimous, don't do this, you're going, perfect, thank you, I will move on, all right? I will tell you the same thing happened to me in the reverse role where, what was it? Probably 2 years ago, I said, I'm thinking about switching my niche and doing my whole theme around foot traffic, right? And I will tell you, it was like a unanimous yes, run, like do it now. And even though I was really scared to do that, hearing everybody get on board and say, you need to be doing this made me more confident to go, let's rip the Band-Aid and let's do it, right? So sometimes the more feedback we get can help us versus just like one person's opinion. Okay, another reason. This will be my last reason, and then I'm going to talk about things to think about or ask before you join a mastermind, okay? Now, this is a big one, but like networking, and not just in like a cheesy way, like the old-fashioned like networking and passing around business cards, but using other people's networks in the mastermind, right? So saying to your mastermind, I am in need of a social media manager. Does anybody have any referrals? Does anybody have any recommendations for a book editor, right? All of a sudden, you don't have to do as much of like the process of researching and like interviewing and all of that. You can go, oh, perfect. This girl has written 3 of the books for 5 of the people in the group. Okay, great. I feel much, much better, right? And you can all of a sudden go faster with those connections. So referrals and recommendations, it's honestly where I go when I have a question. If I'm like, okay, where should I be? What book should I be reading? Or whatever, what's the next person I should be hiring? I am constantly asking my mastermind for those connections. All right. So you can get to tap into other people's networks, not just yours. Right. So people always say like, your net worth is directly related to your network. Well, when you can 10x it because it's not just yours, it now becomes the people in the room and their people, you start to snowball it so much faster. Do you guys see how like even just one of these, like let's say you're like, I don't want to do anything this year but network, you should be in a mastermind. If you're like, I don't need anything but accountability, you should be in a mastermind, right? Like there are so many things where we could say even just one of these pieces would make it worth the investment for you. Okay, so let's talk about things to think about or ask, okay? So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your intention? Okay. Why do you want to join? So all the things I just said. Okay. What is something that you are being compelled to do this? So first of all, maybe you just really like somebody. Let's say you've been watching somebody for a long time. You like their business model and you just want to learn from them. You might be thinking, I don't even care who's in the group. I'm not there for them. I am there for the facilitator, right? That might be your intention. Okay, great. Your intention might be, I don't care who's running it. I'm curious about who's in the room, right? I am there to meet 20 new people or whatever it looks like. Okay. So it's really, really important that you know going into it, what am I hoping to get out of it? right? So if you know going into it what you're looking for, it's going to be a lot easier to ask questions and start doing your research to figure out which ones are the best. Because here's the thing, you're going to start researching tons of them and you're going to be like, they all sound amazing, right? But they're all different in their own way. So what are you hoping to get out of it? Okay, so the overall question that I want you to ask too is, will this mastermind stretch you? Right? It might be that the facilitator will stretch you, but the people in the room, again, you may not be there for, but you're like, I'm ready for their content or their like zone of genius. Okay, so think about this. Maybe you are above the level of the people in the room and you are aware of that. I remember like one time, I think I said to Amy Porterfield, I'm like, if you have a mastermind, I will be in it. And she's like, why would you join my mastermind? Like, because I want to learn from you. Like, I want to learn everything about it. She's like, yes, but what if the people in the group, like you were ahead of them? Like, I don't care. I would be there just to pick your brain and ask you all of the things, right? Thankfully, I'm her friend, but I'm not sitting there picking your brain 24/7, right? So I had said that to her and we were joking, but seriously, sometimes it doesn't matter if you're above the people in the room, or I shouldn't say above, but like more experienced, if you know you can get something from the facilitator. Sometimes you're saying, no, I really want to make networks. Like I want to build my network. I want to have a bigger connection. So then therefore, I want to find like 20 incredible people minimum that are going to grow and inspire and stretch me, right? So you want to ask yourself, where are you looking for that stretch to come in? Sometimes it's both. Sometimes the facilitator is phenomenal and the people in the room are still phenomenal, okay? So think about that. Okay, I want you to make sure that you think bigger when you, or I want you to understand that when you think bigger, right? When you are in that other room, you will start to think bigger. So if you are only sharing your goals with an accountability partner, you're sharing your goals with your coach, right? And maybe your coach isn't sharing with you the crazy big success story that just happened to them because they don't want you to feel like your $1,000 launch wasn't successful when they maybe just launched $1 million, right? They're not always sharing all of the amazing things. But when you're in a room, hearing like action takers and hearing people, all of a sudden that becomes the norm, right? So for instance, let's say you are running Facebook ads and you spend about $50 a day and you hang out with a few friends and actually they don't even really run ads. They run a little bit, like maybe a $5 a day, nothing crazy. So you're thinking, I'm doing well, things are great, right? Now, if you join another mastermind where everybody was spending at least $1,000 a day, do you see the difference in how that will completely change the world you live in? All of a sudden, you're like the small, like little guy, right? And you're watching these big dogs play a much bigger game. So I want you to be thinking about the conversation that is going to be going on. All right. Number two, what does the accountability look like in this program, in this mastermind? Are there, right? Definitely take notes and write these things down for yourself so you can ask when you're going to look at these. Are there individual hot seats, right? Whether that is happening virtually on calls or in person at events, like what does that look like? All right. The principle of a hot seat is basically you get a chance to present in front of the entire room and say, just like I did, I was like, guys, I'm making this big change. I'm thinking about switching my niche, switching my audience. I'm thinking about doing this thing called foot traffic. What do you think? And for about 20 minutes, everybody shared their opinion about my business, right? So I'm getting like, they couldn't even all speak. So they're all writing down what we call like love notes. And then they're passing them to me. And after I hear for 20 minutes and I record it so I can re-listen, I then read all of their love notes. And it's just so much information in such a small like period of time, right? So do they have opportunity for hot seats, laser coaching where it's all about you and your business? That is a big one. Okay. So that I want to know about. Then as far as like the accountability factor, are you ever strategizing, setting goals? Are they ever aware of that? Okay. I have been in programs before where they've never asked me anything. They never asked me what I was trying to do. What would it look like to be successful, for 2020? None of that. So by the end of it, they had no idea if I did well or not, right? So how could they hold me accountable if they didn't know what my goals were? So if you are not being asked what your goals are, what that accountability looks like, this is probably a red flag if you know you need accountability. And honestly, most of us need accountability, okay? One of the things that I do for sure is at the end of our retreats, I will say, okay, we spend time the last part of our wrap up. What's your 7-day goal? What's your 30-day goal? What's your 90-day goal? The reason we do 7 is, hey, we're fast action takers. You should leave here within 7 days. Something should have happened because of this retreat. And not only do we have people do it, we record them. And then after we record them, we send it to our customer success department. They document them and they follow up in 7 days. Hey, what happened? You said you wanted to do this. Fill me in, right? Do you see the difference in accountability? Be very, very careful. Okay, let's talk about peer versus paid. So, okay, I've been in both quite a bit. It's not like I've had more free than paid or vice versa. Now, I will say this, and I do not say this to brag or to sound just, you know what I'm saying. I have only been, the only free masterminds that I have ever been in that have worked out has been the ones I have actually ran myself. If I wasn't the leader, they actually always fell apart. Okay. Now, it's not because I'm amazing. Okay. It's because I was willing to lead. I was willing, right, to do all the things that nobody wanted to do, the tedious stuff, right? Like the scheduling and just like random stuff like that. So my point is, usually people don't want that responsibility. They want to show up and get the advantage, the perks, right? Without having to actually do the work. So again, it's not because I ran it, it's because they had a leader. The leader happened to be me, right? So here's what I want you to understand. Free, they usually do not last long if the members don't stick, or I should say, if the members don't start to like pick up the slack and actually help out the leader, because the leader starts to get resentful, right? So you want to make sure that if you're like, I'm going to do a peer-led one this year and this person's hosting it, you better double check that they have the qualifications to actually make this work. They've actually had it run. They've had it go longer than just a year, right? You want to see, are they committed to this? Now, if you're starting one from scratch, first of all, please know I would only do it yourself if you have already been in them. I don't ever create something that I've never been a part of before, right? So if I want to create something, it's because I've seen it a million times and I can grab what I liked and what I didn't, and I know all the things. If I were to decide today to start a mastermind and I've never been in one before, it probably won't even be a mastermind because you don't even know what it feels like quite yet. So don't jump to hosting it yourself until you've been in a few, I would say. Okay. Because if you just do one yourself, like you've joined and you've done somebody else's and then you do it yourself, guess what? You pretty much model the person you were in and you've copied their model. When you've been in several and you pick and choose what you liked and what you didn't, all that good stuff, you create something much more unique. Okay. All right. 3 more questions. Number 4, will you get access to outside speakers and guests? Okay. So what I always look for is, how connected is this person? Like, are they going to bring in phenomenal speakers and different people that we're going to get access to? Because guess what? I'm not just thinking about my network within the people in the group. I'm thinking about my network and who I'm building with the speakers that come to present in the room as well, right? So are there other speakers? This is a great question to ask. Like, this year, are you planning on having any speakers, and how many and how often, and what access do we have? Like, will we get to be there live and ask them questions? What does that look like? Because here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to get these incredible people in the room with 7 other people listening, and then there's a 15-minute Q&A, and you're going to get some private time with these people that in another way you would never have had private time with. Okay. So think about that. Now, with that said, if that's important to you, right, you'll obviously want to more, like the more you realize, ooh, this is important, the more you're going to want to lead with some of those questions. Okay. Number 5, what will they do to keep the motivation going? So usually masterminds are about a year long, and they're not even just like it's a year and it's over. Usually you're in a mastermind and you're in it for many years, right? I've been in masterminds. The longest one I ever was in was like 8 years. Okay. So obviously the more you're doing it, the longer the motivation, like, how do I say this? The harder it is to keep the motivation. So what is the group committed to doing to keep the motivation going, right? So you can ask that to the person that's facilitating. Actually say to them, what will you be doing to make sure that we don't fall off, right? That all of a sudden the group, like half of them don't show up anymore, what that looks like. So you really want to make sure that you're asking questions like that to see, is this going to be a good fit or not? So one of the things I just mentioned is we're having our retreats like every 3 to 4 months. We're doing something bigger, right? Where it's speakers and topics and like a whole day or 2 worth. Okay. Oh my goodness, it's already 11:55. Wow. Okay. So we're doing all of that. I want you to start asking yourself, well, how am I going to stay motivated? Because every time we do something like that, we're setting those new goals. Okay. All right. Number 6, how big is it? This is a big question. Or maybe they're like, well, obviously I can't predict next year, right? But you can say, well, how big was it this year? That's a great question to ask, because people will never say, They won't tell you how big it is, especially because they're maybe hoping it's going to grow and you're hoping for a small number. So just say, how big was it last year? You'll get a really good sense if this is going to be a group of 10 or 20 or 100. I have been in masterminds where there have been hundreds of people, okay? Ask that question. It will change the feel of the entire group, okay? Now, here's the thing. I want you to be prepared when selecting your mastermind for 2021. And I don't want you to think like, well, you're a fan because you have your own mastermind. You guys, before I ever had my own mastermind, I was still in masterminds. I told you I've been in masterminds for 14 years. I've only had mine for 3 years, okay? Or I should say I've only had my paid one for 3 years. I've held peer ones before, right? So for the first 11 years, I was doing them without ever collecting money for my own, okay? Trust me when I say, when people say to me, like, what has been one of the reasons for your success? Like, why have you grown so fast? I have always said, because I'm committed to not being the smartest person in the room. I am committed to being in rooms of other people that are giving strategies and giving feedback. And definitely masterminds have been a huge aspect of what I've been doing. Now, even if you aren't considering my program Powerhouse, I want you to consider a mastermind, okay? I'm not kidding. Like, you may not be a good fit for mine, but you might be a great fit for somebody else's. A mastermind will be a game changer for you in 2021. I promise, okay? Now, we got to make sure, like, the right mastermind is important. So you're going to have to do some research. You're going to have to start checking things out. If you want to check out mine as one of them to kind of compare, you can go to, I have a free training that I did, 4 inevitable stages of what it takes to becoming a powerhouse and successfully have your business work for you. My Powerhouse Mastermind is application only. So you can't just apply and get in. You apply and we make sure you're a good fit. So if you go to stacytuschel.com/insider, first watch that training and then apply. And then if you're a good fit, we'll reach back out and give you more details. Okay. So again, that's stacytuschel.com/insider. It's a completely free training. Even if you're like, I am so brand spanking new, this is never going to be something I should be in quite yet. The training itself is phenomenal. Go watch it and then just don't apply. Okay. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Consider what masterminds you need to be thinking about and then start doing your homework. Time is going to fly and 2021 is going to be here before you know it. And you want to make sure you have your seat saved in the right mastermind that's going to get you where you want to go. Comment below. Let me know. Have you been in a mastermind before? And are you thinking of one for 2021? I want to hear from you. All right. See you soon.